Alright, so back out in Winter Spring, and I'd go over the build with you in the improved dodge method. What that is, so your assassination pretty much needs to look just like this. There's a couple different variants you can do with some of these points, mainly these three abilities, but this is the best overall all-around setup. So your combat looks just like this. And there's your first 30 points, or your assassination, sorry. And then your combat. So for these 21 points, don't get this and don't get this. You're going to put these 5 points into improved or lightning reflexes instead. So this, and your last point there. And so you'll notice for PvP, you'll have a really high dodge, a really high chance to hit, a really high parry, riposte, blade fury, improved sprint, which is really great in PvP. The reduced cooldown and gouge is nice for more advanced things, for like more advanced content, like I solo a lot of 60 elites and stuff like that, or 1 versus 1 combat, because lots of the times I'll get in fights where it's actually 2 of them and 1 of me, and so I gotta do gouge bandage or make use of gouge on the second guy type things. And because I do a lot of stuff like that, the reduced cooldowns for the evasion and the sprint, which is now frees you from any route, so you can't be kited anymore, is kind of nice in that aspect. But by getting the improved dodge, that 5% there, it gets really easy, and my gear isn't dodge focused. I'd be rocking basically 29% dodge with no buffs. This is just food, and that's Troll's Blood. And these poisons are set up with cripple and deadly, just like PvP. Well, usually I run wound here, but sometimes deadly. And so 30% dodge with no buffs. I don't use any buffs when I'm PvPing. And the 10% parry. You can see you become quite resilient. So that should cover the specs. I would definitely do the lightning reflexes version compared to the way I have it right now. In fact, I might switch back over to that. You'll notice it doesn't have dual wield spec or any weapon focused specs, so you want to use a slow main hand for highest sinister strike damage. See how the weapon damage is high on that, and then you can use whatever type of weapon you want in your offhand. I put a dagger because a fast main hand, or a slow main hand and a fast offhand makes your offhand really good at procking things, or activating procs, like your offhand poison, or life steal, or if you run the cards, those type things. And because we don't have improved damage, putting a high damage slow weapon here would be really bad. We wouldn't make as much use of it as possible. Really, we don't care how much damage our offhand does when we hit, as long as it's doing some kind of damage and scoring a hit so that it can apply a poison and proc, which is why you want a fast offhand with stat stick. And so See, my offhand's only critting for 100 damage, but it doesn't matter. Because it procs, even though my offhand does basically 80 damage, 60 to 80, so it's hitting for 70 damage. Most things have 20 to 30% mitigation from armor, so 30% off 60, it's hitting for 40 damage regularly. Nothing to write home about. But every time it procs a poison, that one, I'm running deadlies right now, so 110, or if it's an instant, basically 140 damage can happen from that strike. It can proc either one of my cards, so give me 150 health, or do 300 damage, and it can proc lifesteal, which is mainly why we want a fast offhand. So even though it's only doing 40 physical damage, it can give me a bunch of health, or double its damage if it procs lifesteal, or any of the trinkets. You'll see 2 combo points off that SS crit. That's the difference from running a Steel Fate. And then I said I'd show you what the trinkets are like. Got an AV pop here. Every time you hear that lightning sound effect, that's that trinket proccing for 300 damage. Trying to show you more of them. It has a pretty big effect, to be honest. But that's a quick breakdown of the build and how you want to stat your weapons. And then, of course, because critical strikes on this build, your Sinister Strike criticals gain an extra 30% damage. They don't just do double damage. So you're gaining a huge percent damage, so crit is more important. So I'm running not the best gear I could seek out by any means. I don't have epic weapons, which is a huge drawback, but I'm still able to rock almost 25% dodge, 23% crit, and that's without a crit trinket. And my hit cap. You're going to be a lot more resilient because you have high dodge, high parry, your disarm, your evasion cooldown's big time reduced, and because crit is more valuable, agility is obviously more valuable to you running this build as well. And one of the things agility does, if you read it right there, is increase armor value. And so when you stack agility up, I've had this up to 30% mitigation, which lots of rogue builds, when they're trying to get max raid damage, only have like 22. So a 10% reduction from incoming physical damage, on top of you're going to have a super high dodge and a really high parry rate. So you're going to be a lot more resilient in PvP, and you're going to do a lot more damage. The health becomes more valuable. You see, I just have food buff going there. I'm rocking over 4k health. So I live in combat. It's a lot more like fighting a warrior when you fight me. Even if I'm out of stealth, I don't get a stealth opener on someone. And so combat becomes a lot different. You're gonna live through a lot more fights. And then making use of cold blood, that's huge in PvP, because once you get the 5 combo points, cold blood and eviscerate is an instant couple thousand damage whack you can do to someone. So most clothies have less than 3,000 health. By the time you do that, they're dead. You can 4-point cold blood it and usually kill them. Even warriors, especially DPS warriors, if you can cheap shot Sinister Strike, just like that, 5 combo points and Cold Blood Eviscerate, lots of DPS warriors will be dead in PvP, even if they're an epic tier. Another thing to keep in mind is hit. Don't go to just the minimum. You need 6% for PvP. I run a minimum of 7% in PvP, but my target is actually 10% because I want all those white damage hits and I want to not be dodged and not be parried. So that's a lot more valuable as well. Yeah. That'll give you a build to play with. I think you're really, really going to enjoy this over what you have, and in raids you should find you can keep up with almost the same damage, and you won't have to have your damage so pigeonholed around the use of Adrenaline Rush, because now you just have Cold Blood and Blade Fury, which is a 2-minute cooldown and a 3-minute cooldown, so you can use them every other pull type thing, and your damage is going to be a lot higher overall. Again, here's the breakdown. You want your assassination exactly like I have these. Here's your 30 points. And then in combat, just like this, except do not get endurance, do not get improved gouge, and get 5 of 5 lightning reflexes. Everything else, exactly the same. Alright. Respec it, try it out, let me know what you think.